Hi, everybody. Welcome to our workshop on researching scripture and theological topics. I am Denise Cruz. I'm a librarian here at Regent. I'm so glad to see you all, and I'm excited to talk about this topic. So I know this is a topic of interest to basically everyone at Regent, and I'm going to focus on two kinds of students today. One is the student who's studying theology and biblical studies, and the other is just a student in another subject that still wants to connect scripture or Christian themes to their research papers in their field. So I'm going to start with just a few words about bookmarking library web pages, because sometimes it can be easy to forget what I talked about in the workshop, or hard to find the pages that I was referring to. So I don't want that to happen. So I made a screen here in the PowerPoint, and you can download this PowerPoint if you want. And I'll also be showing you all these separately, but these are sort of some of the main web pages we're going to be looking at. And if I had to even highlight a few of these that are even more important than the rest, I would say Primo is probably the most important one, and then the Divinity and Religion Research Guide, which is number 3 down here. So can you see my little hand pointing at it? So those are kind of the two most important resources you'll need. And I'll show you those, and I can put the links in the chat later as well if you need help with that. But I'm also going to show you the Ask a Librarian page, which is where you can get help from a librarian anytime. You can do 24/7 chat. You can submit a research question and we will answer it and help you with it. You can make an appointment with us. You can email us, call us. We can do a Zoom appointment. There's all different ways to get help from librarians, and we love to work with all of you. I also did a link here to our YouTube channel, which has some great videos on using our tools. So I'll show you that as well. All right, so let's get started. And one more thing. If you do forget how to find any of these pages, just use Google and Google Regent Library, Divinity, Religion Guide, or something like that. Or Regent University Primo, or whatever, because Primo is our main search system. So Google is always a good way to find our pages, or you can save these as well. All right, I'm going to go on to my first slide here. So the first thing I want to talk about is how do you come up with a topic related to scripture or Christianity? And I think finding a good topic is the first step in writing a great paper, because you want your topic to be interesting, you want it to be narrow and specific, and you want it to not be something that's totally obvious to everyone already, but something that requires more discussion and more research to uncover something interesting about it or something important. So if you're a theology, ministry, or biblical studies student, or if you're writing a paper for one of those classes, a few ways you can come up with topics are: think about verses in scripture that are disputed or enigmatic, meaning not everyone knows what they mean, or people have different interpretations of them. That's a great topic, and there are tons of those, starting in Genesis and going all the way to Revelation. The next way is think about questions about church practice, and you could research those, like how do you structure a church? How do you handle certain things on Sunday morning in church, like music or communion? How do you pick a leader, or how do you know how to structure your leadership for a church? Those are different things you can research. Questions about church history and the early church and how the early church did things are always interesting to people. And also historical theology, how different theological movements have developed over time, like the Reformation or in the Middle Ages, or maybe the Pentecostal or charismatic movement in the 20th century in America. So these are all different things you can research. Current trends and debates that relate to the church or Christianity, maybe things related to current events. Problems that you see in church or in ministry settings that you would like to research how to solve those problems or the best way to solve them. Common challenges that people make to Christianity, which are apologetics, is like how to defend the faith. Textual and authorship questions, like about who wrote a certain book of the Bible, or how do we know that we have the best textual manuscript as a basis for reading that book of the Bible. And then, so this is like sources for books of the Bible. And then historicity, which is there historical and archaeological evidence that supports the accounts of Scripture? So that is a whole different field, and we have professors here that specialize in that you can also talk to about any of these things. So don't forget professors being a great resource to help you find a topic, help you, know the best sources to look at and things like that. All right, so that's one way to find a topic. But what if you're in another field? Like me, I'm a literature person. I teach English, or maybe you're a history major, maybe you're a communications major, maybe you're a science major, or any number of things. Well, you can do something called interdisciplinary research, where you connect Christian or scriptural themes to your field. So you can do religion and literature together, or government and religion research together, or psychology and religion, or psychology and Christianity. And there's going to be tons of stuff on that too that you can read. And again, many professors here at Regent specialize in combining Christian themes with their field, whether it's film, art, literature, leadership, business, all these things. We can take a Christian point of view or do Christian research on that. Another thing is, maybe you're in a class like where your professor says you have to connect Scripture to your topic, and you're stumped about that. Like, how do I connect Scripture to, this more secular seeming topic or to a current issue? So, for example, say you're writing a paper on social media, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you can kind of make different arguments about that. But you might be stumped. How do I connect Scripture to that? Because, there's no mention of Facebook in the Bible, or Twitter, or Instagram, or TikTok, or whatever. So how could you connect Scripture to social media? Well, you have to be creative and think about, maybe if you're going to criticize social media, what are you going to criticize it for? Maybe you're saying that people on social media get too angry and lose their temper, and so you might look up verses about anger. Or maybe you're going to say that social media can be used to share the gospel. So you're going to look up verses about evangelism and how can people believe in the gospel if they've never heard it, and we can use social media as a tool. So whether good or bad, you can maybe find a verse that connects to your argument of whatever idea you're looking at. Same thing with education or transgenderism, which are topics that are always in the news lately. They're not specifically mentioned in the Bible by that name, but there are verses that relate to those issues. So you just have to kind of think a little more about it. Or there's other issues like the death penalty, abortion, child discipline, and divorce, which are sort of mentioned in Scripture, but people dispute what it says. And so those would be good things to write about, but also where it's important to look at all the different verses that connect to those issues, and maybe research what other writers and scholars have said about those verses. So how do you know which verses connect to, say, abortion or child discipline or divorce? And so that's kind of your first step, is finding the scriptural references that relate to your topic, unless you already are researching a specific passage of Scripture. So I'm going to start with just how to use the internet to do research on these topics, because the internet is something we sometimes overlook and we at the library, but I don't want to skip over that, because I think it can be a good first step of finding background knowledge about your topic or finding a good issue to write about. So my next slide is about using the internet. So one thing that I do when I'm helping students is I just Google verses about, and then I put their topic in. And that's just an easy way, because there's websites out there that just compile verses related to all those topics I just mentioned. And so you might want to play around with that. Like you could Google verses about abortion, or verses about unborn children, or verses about children in the womb. You can find different ways to put it. And you're going to find stuff on the internet where people have listed all the verses that reference those things. And just play around with that. So then you can look up Christian periodicals, which are like magazines that are from a Christian point of view, and look up the name of that Christian magazine with your topic. So, Google is not going to bring up Christian magazines to the top of the search results. You've probably noticed that. It's going to bring up things like the New York Times or Wikipedia. But if you want a Christian point of view, you can type in First Things, which is a great Christian magazine, or Christianity Today, or Relevant, which is a more like kind of hip Christian magazine, or Christ in Pop Culture, which is kind of a similar thing, or the Gospel Coalition, or Charisma, which is more charismatic, obviously. So you can look up the name of that magazine with your topic. Like, what does Christianity Today say about abortion or transgenderism or whatever, or about, it doesn't have to be a current event. It could be about a scriptural topic or a theological topic too. So you can also look up what nonprofit organizations say on the internet, like Focus on the Family, or the U.S. Council of Catholic Bishops. They put out a website that has statements about current issues like ethical and biblical arguments related to sexuality issues, related to political questions. So you can find a lot of that religious content on the web, and that's because people want it to be free. They want it to be accessible. So churches, pastors, theologians, denominations, they're going to put out their content for free on the web. So don't forget to use the internet to find some of those things, especially if you're looking for a good issue to research, or if you want to find different points of view, like what do more conservative Christians say about this, and what do more progressive Christians say about a certain topic. So the web is great for those Christian periodicals. I also want to recommend a few websites here that are really good for research. And they might not be good to, like, you might not cite them in your paper necessarily, because you might go on to find a better source for the same information or something like that. But it might be a good starting point. So this one is Bible Study Tools, which gives you Bible translations side by side. So notice I have the link there. And this is great because you can compare different English translations of the same verse. And it's really quick. So I'll just show you a verse related to abortion in Exodus 21:22 that people kind of dispute whether it's referring to a miscarriage or whether it's just referring to a premature birth. And so it's good to compare the different English translations and how they've translated that. And then the next website I have is the Greek or Hebrew words in a verse, which is called the lexicon for the verse. So this one is called Bible Hub. And it is a great website for free that will give you the breakdown of all the Greek and Hebrew words, and you can click on the word and find the definition and other verses it's used in. So that's a great quick reference if you're just trying to do some preliminary research about a verse. Another good one is Summa Theologiae, which is a famous work of theology from the Middle Ages by Thomas Aquinas, where he addresses like almost every theology topic or moral issue that you can think of. So there's a searchable version of that online for free, where you can search what does this famous theologian say about marriage or whatever it is, and then find a interesting kind of classic source. So don't forget the classics, like the great theological writers like St. Augustine, or the church fathers in the early church, or Aquinas, or like the Luther and Calvin from the Reformation, and people like that, because they might have talked about your topic, and that might be a great historical classic source to use. And they often, those things, because they're older, are free on the web because they're not protected by copyright, and so you can search for your topic within them using Google or using the website itself. So those are some tips about using the internet for free. But now I'm going to move on to our library system, because as you know, as a student, you pay a lot of tuition for access to tons of resources that we have for you. So I'm going to kind of show you what we have and how to use it to the best, in the best way to zero in on what you're looking for. Okay, so the next thing here is using reference works. So reference works, like the websites I was just mentioning, are reference works, but they're on the web. And if you want or need a book reference work, the library is the place to come. So what is a reference work? A reference work is something where you look really quick for information. So it's something like an encyclopedia or a dictionary. And we've all used those, I think, whether we've used them online or in person. If we're older, like me, I used the actual book encyclopedias when I was a kid, or book dictionaries, or we can get them online. But there are many encyclopedias and dictionaries written just for Christian and scriptural research. So I'm going to go through what those are. The first one I want to talk about is Bible dictionaries. So these are dictionaries that look up words used in scripture, and they tell you what the Greek or Hebrew word meant originally, and they give you an in-depth explanation of that. For example, say you're looking up the word for pastor in the New Testament, which is often translated as elder, but some people translate it as priest or presbyter. So there's kind of a disputed question about how to translate it and what it means. You might look up that word in a Bible dictionary of the New Testament and see what did that word mean at the time in Greek. Did it mean a priest, like the Jewish priest in the Old Testament? Did it mean more of an elder? Did it mean a pastor? Did it mean, what did it mean exactly? So that's what a Bible dictionary is used for. They can be a little complicated, so you have to figure out how are they organized. You might need to know the Hebrew or Greek word before you use the dictionary. So like that's when the website comes in handy to look up what was the original word for that word you're interested in. Or it might be organized by English translations of the words, which is easier for us, obviously, if we don't know those languages. Or it might be organized by scripture verse. So there's different, you have to figure out the index. And again, librarians can help you with that. The next thing is concordances. So these are books that list every usage in scripture of a certain word, like every time the word for pastor or shepherd is used or something like that. And then you can look at every reference to that word and what does scripture say about it. So same thing with like the unborn child question. In a concordance could be used to find that. Every reference to an unborn child or a child in the womb, you could look up womb or uterus or different words for that, and see all the different places it's mentioned, or maybe marriage or spiritual gifts or whatever it is you're interested in, or gender, sex, female, male. And find everything scripture says. So a concordance is good for that. A commentary is when you have a theologian, usually a scholar, who's writing his own or her own exposition on a verse. So saying what it means, explaining the context, especially explaining any hard questions people have about that verse. So there's going to be commentaries from all different points of view. There's going to be academic commentaries, Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, Pentecostal commentaries. So you might want to look at different commentaries from different denominations, or kind of be like have your worldview sensor turned on. Like maybe you're reading a commentary by someone that doesn't really believe scripture is inspired by God. So that is going to be quite different from a commentator that is a Christian or a Jew that kind of takes scripture seriously. So you want to kind of maybe get commentaries from different perspectives and make sure they're what you need for your paper. And then I'll show you some recommended ones for all of those in a minute. Also, we have focused encyclopedias and dictionaries about scripture and theology. So for example, we have a whole encyclopedia of women in the Bible, or a dictionary of all the parables in the Bible, or all the places in the Bible. And we have many more of those. Those are just a few examples. So those are great tools if you're looking for like a subject like women in the Bible and you want to know everything about it. A lot of those are on our shelves here in the library. So if you're a distance student, you can write to us and ask us to photocopy parts of those books for you, or send them to you if they're the kind of book that can be checked out, which means they're in the general collection of our books. If they're reference books in our reference section, meaning we can't check them out to people, then we can copy parts of that for you and scan them and send them to you. You can also do interlibrary loan requests for that, which is called a request PDF or a hold request. And so if you find the book in our system, you can request it be sent to you electronically or physically. And then when you're looking at those, kind of you want to assess the quality of reference works. Is maybe your professor can recommend some, or you can look at the publisher and the author and see if those are good sources that are academic, or whatever it is that you need, or what denomination they come from. And then you want to use the index in the back often to find what you're looking for. The index is like a list in the back of a book or at the end of a series of books that tells you where to find the information you're looking for. All right, so next thing is I'm going to show you an example. This is in our library search system called Primo. This is a new international dictionary of the Old Testament theology and exegesis by William A. Van Gemeren, the editor, and that means other people worked on it too. Notice it's in our general collection, so that means it can be checked out to you and sent to you in the mail if you don't live around here, or you can come in and look at it. And then or you can I did this the other day. Go and look in it for you and find the correct pages for you. And then see where all the volumes are listed down at the bottom of this picture. This dictionary has 5 volumes. That means it's a big dictionary about that wide on the shelf. It has a lot of information in it. So once you find the correct pages, or a librarian finds them for you, you can click where it says digitization. Do you see that next to the volumes? And then you say, I want these page numbers, or I want this entry with this name, like for whatever word it is you're looking up. So the other day I looked up the word prostitution in relation to Joshua 2:1, which is the verse about Rahab, the prostitute. And so I looked up the Hebrew word for that, and then got the page numbers, and then you can click digitization and put in the page numbers you need, and we will copy them for you. Or if you want the whole book sent to you, click on hold request. Or if you want it saved for you at the front desk if you live here. But the thing with that is you'd have to do it for all 5 volumes unless you knew which volume you wanted. So that would be kind of important to narrow down. And notice over here, we also have suggested other books in our system that either we own or other libraries own, and we could borrow them for you. And notice the call number up here, BS440. That means it's in the shelf marked BS, which is all biblical studies books. It's easy to remember, BS for biblical studies. And I think that's just a coincidence, but that's where all of our books on the Bible are in our library. And we have a huge section of books on the Bible. And you can, if you find any of them in our search, we will, like I said, send them to you or copy them for you if you're a distant student, or we can help you find them if you're in the library. All right, the next thing is using Primo, which is our library search system. So this is where you sign into our system. It also searches most of our 400 databases for you. So it's a great place to start your research. It can find you articles, books, reference works, ebooks, videos. And you can also save favorites in Primo. You can also get citations formatted for you there. You can check your library account. You can request items delivered to you or borrowed for you there. Some tips I have for searching Primo for scripture research is add in the word commentary to your search if you're looking for a Bible commentary. Play with different keywords and search tricks, and I'll show you that in a minute, because sometimes you might be using slightly the wrong word or spelling or something like that. So like for Rahab, if you're interested in that, you could look up Rahab and prostitute, but you also might want prostitution or something like that. Or you might just want to look up the book of Joshua commentary. So try different types of approaches to your search. And then you also want to use our index system. In our search, we have everything organized not just by keywords, which is normally how we start a search, but also by the subject it's about, the author, the journal title it's from, the year, and the genre, which is the type of source. So you can click on, for example, the author's name and find everything else by that author. You can click on the subject if it's like the subject of Rahab and find everything else on her. You can search, click on the journal title and find everything else from that journal. You can click on the year or organize your search by year if you need recent sources. You can click on the genre, like articles, if you only want articles, or books if you only want books. So everything in the library is organized into categories, which is called indexing. And if you take advantage of that, it can help you find more sources on your topic. The next thing is using databases. So we have a special research guide for you called the Divinity and Religion Guide, which lists all of our great databases for that. And I'm going to show you those in a minute, but you want to use the ATLA and the ProQuest database. Those are like our 2 main religion databases. And I'll show you those in a minute. We also have the Christian Periodical Index, which is down here a little bit cut off at the bottom, and the JSTOR database, which are good for religion research as well. Google Scholar is also a great tool if you're stumped on your topic, especially, or you can't find a lot in our library system because maybe you're not using the right terms, or you're putting in too many terms or too few terms, so you're getting too few or too many sources. Try Google Scholar because it's a very predictive search. It kind of knows, it reads your mind, knows what you're looking for. It kind of looks for synonyms for your terms. It doesn't care if you misspell the words a little bit. It's not fussy. So it's a great tool to use if you're not sure how to search for your topic exactly. And a great thing to use Google Scholar for is to actually search our system. So this is a really cool thing. you can link it to our library and use it to search our collection. So it's like using the power of Google, but the access to the resources you have as a student of Regent too. So the way to do that is go to the drop-down menu in Google Scholar, and then settings, then library links, and then look up our library and click on it. And then it will automatically search our holdings and link you right to them. All right, and then librarians can help if you're confused about any of this. Email me for an appointment or just with a question, set up an appointment, do our chat service, which is great. Come to a workshop like this one, or submit a question to our website. So those are all good ways. So I'm going to actually switch over real quick to share my screen with you because I want to show you all these things. Let's see. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so I'm going to move over to sharing my screen to show you some of these, some examples of how to use these tools. Okay, so first thing I want to show you is what I was saying about the web. So I had mentioned there's a great website called Bible Study Tools where it helps you compare different translations. So I'm going to show you that. This is for Exodus 21, 22. I'm going to go down here, and it has all the different translations from different versions of the Bible. So you can compare, is it actually talking about a miscarriage caused by someone like beating a woman is basically what's in question here, or is it talking about a premature birth? So like this one says the loss of the child, and another one just says miscarriage, and then another one says premature birth. If you go down here, so it says like here, the Holman Bible says children are born prematurely. So then you kind of think, well, maybe I need to go look at the original Hebrew language. So you can look up Exodus 21, 22 in Hebrew in Google. And this will bring up the Bible Hub website, which gives you the Hebrew words. And so then you can sort of find out what the Hebrew word is for premature birth here, which is the Weyaseu Yeladeha. And I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. And then you can click on that to find more information about that word, or bring it to our library Bible dictionaries to do more in-depth academic research on those words. But it's like kind of a good starting point to kind of get you familiar with the words and what the original Hebrew word meant. All right, so that's on the web. And then you can also Google Exodus 21, 22 or abortion in the Bible, verses about abortion, verses about unborn children. And you can find some interesting articles and things on the web for that. But let's go over to our library system now. I want to show you Primo. So as I mentioned, this is where I start my searches, and I recommend bookmarking this page. So I have to sign in first in order to get access to everything and to my account. This is our library search page that, again, I think is a great place to always start. So say I'm looking for Abraham in the Bible, and I'm curious about, I want to research something about Abraham. So I just put a simple search of just his name. Now notice this is a problem because it's not a very specific search, and so it brought up 841,000 results, which is too many results, right? And also, look at this. It's bringing up a bunch of stuff about Abraham Lincoln, and that's not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Abraham in Genesis. So I could add a word like Abraham in Genesis to my search to make it a little more narrow. Or I can click on advanced search over here and add the word not to exclude anything about Abraham Lincoln. So I could put on Abraham not Lincoln, and that's called an advanced search when you use these little fields, either and, not, or to get more narrow in your search and more zeroed in on your topic. So now I'm going to try that search and see what happens. Now notice it narrowed it down a lot to 747 results. So that's 747,000. So that's less than before, which is good, but it's still too big of a search. Now notice, say I look through here and there might be something good that I like, but it's still bringing up some stuff that's not really related. It's like other authors called Abraham and stuff like that. So how can I narrow it down a little more? Well, like I said, I can add more terms. Like, what am I interested in about Abraham? Am I interested in his calling? Am I interested in his pagan background? Am I interested in the promise God made to him that he'd be the father of, thousands of descendants, or maybe Isaac? What I can add terms like that to whatever I'm interested in. Or I can go over here. Notice in the left margin we have all these filters. So just like if you're online shopping, you filter down based on the size of jeans you're looking for or something like that. Or, in Amazon, you narrow down by the category of things you're looking for. Here, you can narrow down by the type of source. So maybe you want only online sources, or maybe you're looking for print books. You can also narrow it down by genre, like the article, book chapter, book, dissertation, ebook. You can also go over to the newspaper search. So that's a great way to narrow it down. Notice peer-reviewed journals. Some of your professors will probably require those, so that's a good way to narrow it down. Also, I want to show you subjects. Look at the subjects down here. Now look at all the different subjects that came up when I searched for the word Abraham. So now I need to narrow it down to just the Bible as my subject. So look down here. It says Bible Old Testament criticism, Bible Genesis criticism, also religion, Judaism, Abraham biblical patriarch, Jewish philosophy, Bible Old Testament. So I can click on any of those and try them out. So let's try this one, Bible Old Testament criticism. It narrows down my search to only 36 results. So this is a lot better for me. It's a lot closer to what I want, right? You can also do it by date. If your professor said you need new sources, you can narrow it down by date, or you can sort it by date up at the top. What if I just want to see what's held by the library in print, like what books do we actually have in the library? So these are books that our library owns that, again, we can send to you, or we can copy a chapter of it for you and send the copy to you. Now notice here, some of them are available online as ebooks as well. So I'm going to show you this one. This one we have is both a print book and a ebook. So this is about Abraham in the Bible. Now, what if I am an online student, or it's the middle of the night, so I really need the ebook. I can't go into the library to get the print book. So I'm going to click on the database, which is called EBSCO, to find my ebook. Bring it over here, and then I can either download it or just read the book online, and that's very easy, right? Now back in Primo, I can also get a permalink to this source. I can cite it. I can email it to myself. I can save it to my RefWorks account, which is a bibliography account you can start. You can save it with a thumbtack to your favorites, where I'm pointing right here. If you scroll down a little bit, you can also go to more subjects, like here, things about the politics or Abraham biblical patriarch. I could click on those, or click on the author's name and find more things by him. There's also suggested books down here about the same topic, or up here on the right. So that's how you find an ebook. What about if I'm interested in Rahab, like I was talking about before, who's a character in Joshua? I could just look up Joshua commentary. If I just want a commentary on the whole book of Joshua. So look, they come up right at the top here because I added the word commentary into my search. If I had just put the word Joshua, obviously I would get a million things not related. But since I added this keyword commentary, and now look, I can narrow it down to books or things held by our library or things that are online. So notice this one says commentary on Joshua from Baker, which is a Christian publisher. So maybe I'm interested in that one. Notice it says, get it for me from other libraries. That means we don't own this book, but we're suggesting it to you. And this is our new interlibrary loan system. See where the blue button is that says get it. If you want it sent to you as a physical book, you can click there. If you want just a section of it, you can click on get a digital chapter from the other library. But you'd want to go find the table of contents or the index online so you can know which page numbers you need. All right, so that's pretty simple. If I click on this, it will ask me my address, or if I'm going to pick it up right here at the library. And that's all pretty self-explanatory. And then for the digital chapter, it would be faster, obviously. All right, so that's Joshua, but maybe I want specifically something on Rahab. So I'll see if that narrows it down. It does, but maybe I only want articles. So I'm going to click on articles over here. And that narrowed it down a bit too. All right, So I'm going to try one more search to show you a few things. Say that I don't know what part of scripture I'm researching. I just know a topic. So I might be looking up early church leadership because I'm curious about how in the early church they had bishops and pastors, and I'm curious about whether they had women as leaders and deacons and things like that. So I might just try this because I'm not sure, the right terms to use. So it's bringing up a lot of stuff. So this says Paul and his team, what the early church can teach us about leadership. So that kind of relates to business a little bit, which is interesting. So it did bring up some kind of interesting stuff there about the early church. And then here, emerging leadership in the Pauline mission, Mary and early Christian women, hidden leadership, patterns of women's leadership in early Christianity. So a lot of good stuff already came up there. Now, what if I want to narrow it down to a little bit more? I can put early church in quotation marks and see how that affects the search, because then it will only bring up that exact phrase of early church. I can also put an asterisk at the end of leader, so I could bring up different forms of the word leadership, and then see what that brings up. So this brought up a lot of interesting stuff about early church and women leaders and other kinds of leaders. Now, what if I'm interested in the question of bishops and what did bishops do in the early church? I can add that word in. I could also add in just women, or I could add in the question of elders and what they did in the early church. So notice Primo is a great search system. And again, you can click on these little thumbtacks whenever you want to save one of those sources. And this one, it has a direct link to our databases that own the articles. So you just click on Get PDF. This book is in print as an ebook, so that's nice. But I'm going to show you this article right here. It will take you to the database. Notice there is an open access version of the article online that's free, or you can go into our database that has this article by clicking there, or you can just click on Get PDF. And down at the bottom, it has subject headings, so I can click on this if I want other articles about leadership or something like that. But the next thing I want to show you is our research guide on divinity. So if you go to our full database list, this is called our A to Z database list, and you can get there by from Primo. There's a tab at the top for a database list. This is a kind of overwhelming list. See how many databases there are? So if you look over here in the right margin, you'll see a link for divinity and religion subject guide. And this is a great page for you to save because it gives you just religion-oriented databases. And so the two main ones that I recommend using are Atla and ProQuest, which are these top two on the left. I'm going to show you Atla. They're both good, and they both kind of will give you different articles, so it's good to try both of them. But I'm going to show you Atla because it has a really cool tool within it called Scripture Research. So if you go up to the top left in this screen, this is the Atla EBSCO database. You can click on Scriptures, and this is really cool. So think of a verse that you want to research. Maybe it's a controversial verse or an unclear verse or something like that. So let's go back to my earlier topic of Exodus 21:22. So I hit expand on Exodus, and it gives me every chapter in Exodus. And this is great. You can click on any of these chapters and you'll find all the articles about that chapter of scripture. But I want chapter 21, so I'm going to go to the next page, and then I'm going to expand chapter 21 because all I want is articles about verse 22. So this is really cool. I'm going to click on verse 22, and I'm going to get all the articles on just Exodus 21, verse 22. And notice you can also search this way up in the left by SR for scripture reference, and then put the scripture reference in quotation marks if you don't want to go through that other thing I just showed you. But notice how many articles come up. Asking for trouble, 2 reading traditions of Exodus 21:22 in antiquity. So this is how people in the old days interpreted this verse. Notice some of these are in other languages, so I can go over here and narrow it down to English articles only, or only scholarly articles, or only full text articles if I need to read it right away. Because some of the articles will just be a title, and then you can go request it through interlibrary loan. But here's a good one that has a full text PDF. And here's one about feticide, so that's killing a fetus. So that might be relevant if I'm curious about the abortion issue and how it relates to this verse. So notice here it brings up the article right away, and then I can start an account within this database if I want and save it to my account, or I can click on this chain link to get the link, copy it and send it to myself so I can save this for later, or I can download the PDF and save it on my computer. All right, so that's ATLA database, and it's found in our religion research guide, which is a great one to bookmark right here. And it has a bunch of other resources, other databases related to religion. These are all really good ones over here on the left. All right, next thing I want to show you real quick is Google Scholar, because as I mentioned, it's really good if you're stumped. Like say I wasn't able to find a lot on church leadership in the early church in my other search. So I'm going to do early church leadership, and it's going to give me some suggestions too, but I'm going to look up early church leadership structure. So notice how quick that was. Google is so fast. And notice it links me over here in the right margin to articles that our library owns. So I can instantly click on that and go find, and this one's about women in the early church. So notice how fast that is. Now maybe I'll try something else. Like I'll put my little star thing up here so I can give different forms of the word leader. And then I'll try bishop and elder and deacon, because I know those were 3 forms of leadership in the early church. And just to be really edgy, I'll throw in women and see if there's anything like that. So this is arguing, some of these are arguing that women were leaders in the early church. Some probably say different, so you look at different views of that. Notice we own a lot of these articles already. But say I'm really just interested in male leadership, which was the predominant. So I take out the word women, and here I've got a lot of great articles that are coming up. Say that I want to look up, was there a priest in the early church? Or maybe I want to look up the responsibilities of leaders or in the early church, or maybe apostles, which were a whole type of leader in the early church. Or where did the papacy and the idea of the Pope come from? That would be another thing to look for. So there's many different combinations of words I can do. And if you want to link this Google Scholar to our library, go up to this little drop-down menu up here, come down to settings, and then go over to library links, and then look up Regent University like I did. And it will show you different, there's another Regent University in England, so you just click on the one that doesn't say London, obviously, and then you save it, and then it's going to instantly search our collection. So that's a really cool tool that we have. So just to kind of recap, the main things I recommend are using the internet and just free sources on the internet for background research. I recommend using Primo, which is our main library search system. I recommend using our religion database list, which is like this. And then I recommend using especially ATLA and ProQuest databases here, as well as these. And then Google Scholar. And all of these are really great tools. So also using reference works. I want to show you in our divinity guide, we have bibliographies of reference works. So if you're wondering, like, what's the best Bible dictionary or what's the best Bible commentary, our professors here at Regent have compiled some bibliographies for you. So you can click on this little tab and go to selected resources, and it will bring up a Word document that has recommended handbooks, dictionaries, encyclopedias, that sort of thing. You can also go to where it says how to write an exegesis paper, and there's a nice bibliography there of recommended exegesis books. You can also look up recommended reference works here under bibliographies. So if you don't know which are the best reference works to look at, like concordances and dictionaries, you can do that. All right, so does anyone have questions or have a topic you want me to recommend anything for? Okay, looks like Tressa and Yana have some questions. Okay, so Tressa said, when a professor does not want you to use Google, does that include Google Scholar? I would say no, because Google Scholar brings up things in our library. Also, even Google can bring up academic sources. So you just have to find, if your professor is requiring only academic sources, you look for the journal title or the book publisher and find out if it's an academic publisher or journal title, and maybe look at the author of the source and if it's a professor or an expert somehow. So you kind of get to recognize academic sources, and I can help you with that more if you want. Or you can, like I said, Google Scholar can be linked to our library, so it's really just searching our library. And then the next thing is, Yana says, I heard somewhere if we lose a search in Primo, we can see the history. Yes, that's true. If you go up into your name in the upper right, when you sign in, your name will appear in the upper right. You can go, one of the options is your history. Also, you save favorites, your requests through ILL, all of that will be in your account. It's all up in the upper right of Primo under your name. All right. Hi, Abby. Thank you. Any other questions or topics you guys are interested in? I know I kind of shared my own topics just to save time, but if you want me to show you anything, I can do that as well. Let me put up my bookmark page again for you. So you can see some of the good, web pages to save, okay? Okay, so Tressa is interested in 1 Peter 2. Okay, so is there anything specific you're interested in about that, or just in general that verse? Okay, the idea of the stone. Okay, so I'm going to show you EBSCO ATLA again. So remember, this was found in the Divinity Research Guide, or you can go to the full database list that's right here, and it's right at the top because it's alphabetical. So you can find ATLA here, and there's a couple different ATLA databases. So I recommend the one called ATLA Religion Database with ATLA serials. So if I go into that, and then I go up to Scriptures, and then I got to move over to the New Testament because these are Old Testament books. So I'm going to keep going next until I get to 1 Peter. I'm going to go one more page. Okay, so 1 Peter here, I'm going to expand it to, and then I'm going to click on chapter 2. Okay, so it brought up 248 articles on just that chapter of Scripture. And I'm going to narrow it down to English language articles. So that narrows it down a little bit. And then, so Tressa, this is still kind of a lot of sources, but you could look through this list and see if any of these are relevant to you. Or you can add another word, like you said, stone. So let's try stone and see if that helps narrow it down. So that's the cool thing about the advanced search. When you have several little fields or search bars, then you can add words and play with different combinations. Okay, so this looks like a good search, Tressa, because notice it's about everything about 1 Peter chapter 2, but also adding in the word stone. Is there another form of that word, maybe like cornerstone or anything like that, or is it just the word stone? Does this look pretty good? And I can like email these to you, or I can do a screenshot for you or whatever, or you can recreate this if you want, if you just go into ATLA. Any other questions or topics? Yes, Google Scholar can be connected to Regent's Library, Tia. So like if you go to Google Scholar, go up to the drop-down menu in the top left, go down to Settings, and then click Library Links. Then you can look up our library and save it, and it will be linked on your computer to our library. So notice, because I have it linked, it shows me these blue links in the right margin, so it automatically is going to bring me right to our articles. Okay, Yana says, okay, Stephen, yeah, I have a website, Stephen, for workshops. I'll show it to you real quick. And you can just also Google Regent Library workshops, but I'm putting all the videos here so you can watch them here, okay? So these are all the ones that we've done so far, and I'll put this one up there as well. And you can also check this for updated schedule of new workshops, or you can check the website where you signed up, which was the Center for Student Happiness website. And I think Heather Plim is going to send the video out for this as well. All right, and then, okay, and then Tressa, you could add in Isaiah to your search there too. That would be interesting, but it looked like some of those articles were already about Isaiah. And Yana says Bible verses about historical natural disasters. Yeah, Yana, actually, I'm thinking of one in the Gospels where the disciples asked Jesus why a disaster happened to people. No, I don't know the exact verse reference right now. So let's see. I mean, again, Google can be helpful, just Bible verses about natural disasters. And this is not exhaustive, but this can be a good way to start, just looking for verses that relate. So here, this is from Luke 13. It's not about weather, but it's about like an accident that happened where a lot of people died. And the disciples said to Jesus, did this happen because those people were sinners worse than us? And he said, no, that's not why. So, you know, he's kind of correcting their view of disasters, thinking they're always a punishment. And of course, in the Old Testament, I think they are used as a punishment sometimes, like here where it says in Deuteronomy 31. But Jesus is saying that's not always the case. You know, so Luke 13, 1 through 5 would be a good reference for that. And you could look that up in Atla as well to see if we have articles just about those verses. Job is another good one that will kind of talk about how natural disasters are not like God's punishment to people necessarily. They could be, but doesn't mean they always are. But all right, and then let's see. Okay. Any other questions? Sylvia?
Yes, hello. I've been trying to, are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay, I've been trying to find some resource on socio-rhetorical criticism, but I
Okay.
can't find it.
Socio-historical Bible criticism?
Or rhetorical,
Okay.
couple of classes. Mm-hmm.
Is this for communications?
This is for my class on my creativity and innovation class.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you call it? There used to be a resource. One of the classes I did before, there used to be a resource for Vernon Robbins, that's the author, that explained the different aspects. But when I tried to go into it, it doesn't seem to be accessible anymore. And I was like, that was so helpful.
Where was it? On the library website or?
I think it was but that was a while back. Anything that has to do with,
Do you remember where it was?
is it journal in the stage? Maybe.
Maybe a journal?
Uh-huh. Anything
Okay,
on
if you're looking
texture,
for If you're looking for a journal title, you can go up to the top of Primo, see where I'm pointing my hand, where it says journals and magazines.
Mhm.
And was that the name of a journal?
Let me go into that. Let me see if I can. So library sources. Let me try again. I guess I'll play with the different topics, texture of text or.
Okay, Tressa has a question about template for theological theme or topic. Let me go over to the Writing Center resources here and see. So that would probably be under organization. So maybe Heather might know too. This looks like it has a couple different kinds of papers, how to organize them. Maybe the analysis one. You're analyzing something. Or the 5-paragraph essay is always a good one. Yeah, I would contact the writing tutors, but this is a good one about just generally how to do an essay outline. So I'll copy that for you. But you can do Writing Center drop-in hours, meet with a tutor instantly if you go to this document right here, or you can email writing@regent.edu if you want to know more about that. Here's that handout. Thanks, Joanna. All right, Sylvia, did you have more on that?